Good afternoon. Welcome into the Murphy Show. Glad to have you on.
Good afternoon, Matt. Thanks for having me on the show this afternoon.
It is always a pleasure to speak with you. What is going on in D.C.? You know, I feel like I yell at my friends about this because my friends are the only one that'll come on with us. But are we seeing enough action to your liking in the Congress, codifying some of this effort being made by the White House, John? And if not, tell me what, if anything, we can do about it.
Well, of course, I think we'd all like to see Congress move faster, but we have to keep in mind that the founders set it up the way they did, and so the process is a little laborious and slow at times, and it's frustrating. But I think we are making good progress. So, you know, we've had 8 of the 11 committees that have got to mark up language for the one big beautiful bill that have gotten their work done. 3 more that are going to do it this week, all with the hope of getting this to the House floor and then, you know, providing leadership and leverage for the United States Senate that is going to be trailing behind us. So I think that needs to get done. We all know that needs to get done. Several weeks ago when we voted on the budget resolution that was a precursor to this, every Democrat voted against it, which is to say that every Democrat voted for the largest tax increase in American history to happen next January 1st. Get this done. It's for the good of the economy, and obviously not only does it make permanent, hopefully, the tax cuts from 2017, but it will also provide President Trump with the resources he needs to finish the work of getting our borders under control, providing for the national defense, and making sure that the U.S. is, again, a leader in energy production all around the world. So there's a lot of good in it. On top of all that, obviously, we hope that it's going to include a tax cut or a tax elimination on tips and overtime pay and Social Security benefits. So a lot of good to be done here that's going to really supercharge the American economy. And I think we're going to get it done in the House, and maybe we get it done. I'm hoping we get it done before Memorial Day.
Congressman, there was conversation last week regarding the one big beautiful bill about the nature of the tax cuts not being quite what they have been since 2017, and obviously they're set to expire without a re-upping of those tax cuts, and some, consideration on the part of Republicans as to how best to move forward. And I feel like the media might be leading me to a belief that there are some hardline differences of opinion amongst Republicans. We know that the Democrats are going to disagree with all of this, and we know that there are there's a razor thin majority in both houses of Congress that mean that y'all have to be in lockstep when you approach this thing. Do you believe that there are disagreements with the bill that might cause problems down the road, or are those small enough that they can be ironed out before it comes to a vote?
I think we can iron these out in the House. The Senate, I'm less familiar with where they stand, frankly, and what the give and take may be there. But I think the House, we've been down this road. We've crossed this river already, and I think that as long as we can hit the targets that we set in our budget resolution, that we can pull together the votes. And I'm confident that Speaker Johnson is having those discussions. We know that we have some that would like to go much further. I'm one of those. I would like to see us cut more than $1.5 trillion. I'd like to see us reach $2.5 trillion, frankly. But we have other members who don't want to go that far and would be happier to see it be less. So I think that we get to an outcome that matches the goals that we set in the House and match our budget resolution, and then I think we will be, providing not only leadership to the Senate to push them along, but a little bit of leverage as well, frankly, for them to get the job done. They don't want to be on the Senate side. I think the body that stands in the way of helping the president fulfill his promises made to the American people that led to the historic victory last November. And so I think you'll see Republicans pull together and get the job done.
Congressman John Rose is with us talking about activities in Washington, D.C. There was a busy weekend, obviously. It's always busy over at the White House. And I'm curious your thoughts. I mean, obviously, we all applaud and celebrate the return of one of our own to our country, the final living American hostage released over the weekend. And I know you, like the rest of us in the state of Tennessee and around the country, were pleased to see that the Trump administration managed to negotiate that release.
Yes, absolutely. The president has provided great clarity and great leadership. I think his first 100 days in office is really a clinic in promises made, promises kept, and the power of leadership. And so seeing another American hostage come home, I think, is a very satisfying day for the family, obviously, and hope for others. In this case, getting the last living American hostage home is a great sign, and I think you'll continue to see President Trump produce results in that regard. The flurry of activity of this president in his first 100 days, I think, just stands as in such stark contrast to the sleepy nature of the previous president and the decline in American leadership and power. And what we know is that our friends and foes around the world alike, I think, like clarity from the United States. They may grimace about it from time to time, but at the end of the day, what I hear from them is that they want to see a strong America. They know the world is in a better place and more and safer and more prosperous when the United States, asserts power, and then we have a strong America.
John, with that in mind, we saw Donald Trump negotiate a 90-day pause in the escalation on tariffs between the United States of America and China. Do you believe that? I mean, I feel like we're as close as ever to a renegotiated deal with China. I think China recognizes that our president is serious and is willing to take the short-term hits and has really been very straightforward with the American people about what it would mean in the short term to gain the benefit of getting a better trade balance in the long term. What do you say about this and some of the other deals that we are expecting over the next coming weeks?
Well, I think you see the master negotiator at work here. He has sent a strong signal to our trading partners around the world that the 80 years of largesse from the United States is coming to an end, and that we're going to expect fair and reciprocal trade with all of our trading partners, friends and foes alike. And obviously China is a special case because we know they not only have abused us in terms of the trading relationship, but they also seek to topple the United States, and we can't allow that to happen. We can't be dependent on them for so many of the important supply chains that we now depend on them to provide to us. And so we're going to see manufacturing come home. And I think you see the president, he has made his point to the Chinese, driven them to the negotiating table, and now is showing that, hey, we can do business if you all want to roll up your sleeves and do it. But I think we should not confuse this with some sort of surrender on the part of the president, but rather a good faith indication that we will negotiate with you. Obviously, leaving in place some significant tariffs still on imports from China, but relenting on the ones that would really have put a almost complete stop to imports from China. And so, I think it's stay tuned because the president's got more work to do. You don't reverse 80 years of tradition and experience overnight. The president is, I think, working very quickly. He knows that we need to do this quickly, and I think you see him exerting maximum pressure to move our trading partners along. And I am very gratified to see the success that this early agreement indicates might be coming.
John, I want to ask you this specifically because I know your farming background and your agricultural background. And it feels to me with the success that Donald Trump has had on the illegal immigration front, on border security and tackling criminal illegal aliens in this country. We've seen some of this in Metro Nashville, and we've been discussing it quite a bit over the last week. And I'm sure you've seen the stories, and I'm sure you're familiar that Tennessee Highway Patrol, with the blessings of our governor and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, they're initiating safety stops. And in some of those stops, the Highway Patrol's turned over individuals who cannot legally document themselves to ICE. I'm fully supportive of this. I would expect you are as well. But the suggestion is now being made by local officials like Mayor Freddie O'Connell and others that businesses are going to have to close down as a result of this. And I'm hearing from some of my quote unquote liberal friends that are suggesting that without illegal alien labor, that our farms cannot continue to function. I suggest that there's an opportunity for our farmers to hire American. There's also a good chance that on the back end of this, we kind of revamp some immigration policy to make sure that everybody's on the up and up and legal. But I'm amazed that our liberal friends are left with the argument that America can't function as a society unless we continue to allow illegal alien activity in this state. What do you say about it?
Well, I completely agree. And first of all, let me commend Governor Lee for taking a principled stand here. He is, like the president, sworn to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the country, and in this case, the state of Tennessee. And I dare say, I think our local officials probably took a similar oath of office. And unlike the previous president, who obviously did not uphold his oath and did not enforce the laws of the United States, we see a strong indication from President Trump that he's going to do that. Listen, the illegal immigration problem that President Biden and Vice President Harris created is going to be difficult and at times painful to unwind. They encouraged people to come here who, now find themselves living in the shadows and out of step with American law. And the president is sending a strong message. And I think, obviously the president has prioritized deporting illegal immigrants who have committed crimes here in our country. But I think the message has been clear that if you came here illegally, you're here illegally, you may want to consider going home and then getting in line and coming here through the very generous and liberal immigration policies that this country has. And we always should keep in mind that Republicans favor legal immigration. There was a time when Democrats like us favored legal immigration, and we need to get back to that. And I think there is going to be some pain and some adjustment as we get back on track. I think ultimately you'll see efforts underway to streamline the process, and you've seen some suggestions, some policies coming out of the Trump administration to make it easier for illegals to self-deport. And I think, they may want to take this signal as an opportunity and time to do that. You also raised the issue of labor, and I think that's a problem, and we know it is, and that's why, of course, we need people to come here legally using the many avenues that allow people to come to our country legally so that they can be a part of our great economy and a part of the American dream. And so this is just a further encouragement of that. And some of the legislation that we're going to take up in Congress this week, I serve on the Ag Committee, but Energy and Commerce is also taking up provisions this week that will strengthen the work requirements required for people to receive SNAP benefits, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits, and also Medicaid benefits. And that's going to facilitate a return to the workforce of a lot of Americans who should be able to get back in the workforce. And, at the end of the day, it's a little rich for Democrats to favor illegal immigrants working cheap in America and depressing the wages that American workers can receive. And so, there is a rebalancing that has to happen, some pain that's a result of the law breaking of the Biden administration, but it's time we get about that. That's what President Trump ran on, and he's fulfilling his campaign promises, and I fully support his policies that are helping to implement a return to lawful behavior. And we should encourage city and state and local officials all across this country to follow the law and get on board in helping President Trump enforce the laws of this country.
Finally, John, only a minute or so left, but you mentioned that that's what Donald Trump ran on. Obviously, our listeners know that not only are you the congressman for Tennessee's 6th congressional district, you are an announced candidate for governor, and I mentioned that only to ask your thoughts on Donald Trump's position on Big Pharma. He took kind of drew a line in the sand earlier today regarding pricing and profiteering from the big pharmaceutical companies. A lot of people are supportive of it. I'm a big fan of free markets, but I think that Big Pharma sadly has perverted the free market in such a way that it's going to take a reset. But not a lot of politicians are willing to go there because, frankly, the pharmaceutical industry spends a lot of money in the world of politics and in the world of lobbying. What do you, and I'm not trying to lead you in any particular direction, I'm just curious your thoughts on this announcement earlier today by Donald Trump and his effort to try to get prices under control for the American consumer.
Well, I think you're exactly right about what the president is doing. And again, this is one of those things that he campaigned on. So I support the president's efforts to get the American people a better deal out of Big Pharma. You know, we, as the White House has made clear, we represent 4 or 5% of the world's population, and yet we represent 75% of the revenue for Big Pharma. And the rest of the world has been kind of taking a free ride. And this is not unlike the trade situation that we've faced around the world. And so I think the president's demand for most favored nation status for U.S. consumers is reasonable. And I think it, again, is another example of how President Trump uses the power of the presidency to drive parties to the negotiating table to get a better deal, a better outcome for this country and for the people of the country. And so I'm very much in favor of that. You know, I'll just say, as a member of the House, my job is to represent the people of the 6th District of Tennessee, not the pharmaceutical industry. I am not, I'm not listed in the top 10 or at the very top of the list of members of Congress that accept big contributions from Big Pharma. And I would maybe challenge your listeners to check out who may be at the top of that list and ask themselves the question then, how does that explain where people maybe come down on this issue? I want to see the consumers, the people of the United States, get a good deal with respect to the medications that they need to live a good life. And we're blessed to have very innovative pharmaceutical companies, but they shouldn't be depending on the U.S. customer to carry the weight of distribute the cost of these miracles to consumers all around the world. And the president, I think, is pushing us in that direction. I applaud his work.